When I first started working on Chinese affairs in the early 1980s, it was clearly a very different time. As you think about the sister relationships that exist now between museums, universities, cities, and the strong ties that come from the kind of economic connections that businessmen here in Cleveland have made in China, it's worth taking a moment to remember how things were at the beginning. My first job in Chinese affairs was working in Washington on a range of issues. In part, though, I had to look over the programs of every Chinese student in the United States who was involved in anything involving the hard sciences. At that time, our small office of 7 or 8 people in the Department of State was involved in every official delegation to China. It gives you a sense of where we started, just by chance. I was later ambassador to Malaysia, but at that time, the country that was the source of the largest number of foreign students studying in the United States was Malaysia. This was long before China exploded on the scene. In those days, it was quite controversial even then that someone from the State Department would be looking over students' programs, and of course the issue of academic freedom arose. And I have to say, I was the most unprepossessing big brother you could imagine. I was about 25 years old, and I suppose they thought I carried a big stick. But even then, there was quite a lot of debate and controversy over how far the government should go in constraining or restraining the relationship with China, because that sense of community hadn't really been established. And this is, throughout the 70s and 80s, I think one of the major objectives was this, that is, trying to explain the mutual understanding that Anita talked about, and to advance the community that Dr. Franklin talked about. I think in the beginning there was genuine lack of understanding, and that beginning lasted for a long time, certainly through the 80s, and which, as some of you will remember, was a very enthusiastic period of engagement with China, and if anything, I think the federal government's role was to remind people that there were problems and that this would be hard and that people should take their time. And indeed, by the end of the 80s, it did prove to be a problem. That is to say, we didn't really identify our communities of interest very well. We didn't really understand very well where each side was coming from. And that resulted, I think, in a very cold period after 1989 for a few years, as we then sought to rebuild the relationship and try again to start building those communities of interest. And those are not things a government can fabricate, of course. These have to be built on genuine ties that are based on genuine interest. And that's really, I think, what the architects of U.S.-China relations back in 1972 and 1979 had in mind. They were very realistic in pursuing U.S.-American interests and finding ways to bring China into the international order in such a way that it would contribute to stability and contribute to a foundation upon which we could build greater economic prosperity for both countries.